Welcome back. Now, you can't go to work because you're either working from home, been laid off, or on unpaid leave. Schools are closed, so the children are home. And to add to that, you're worried about money because of the numerous disruptions. Sound familiar? Well, welcome to the new normal. But rest assured, you are not alone in feeling stressed and overwhelmed. Tonight, we ask you and your family how you're coping. And we have psychiatrist Dr. NJENGA joining us to take all of your questions on how to navigate this period. And also joining us are DUNCAN and JUMA, who have been actually sharing their experience online about how things have changed in their relationship since the pandemic hit. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Let me begin with you, DUNCAN and Kendi. You know, you've been sharing your experience the last couple of weeks of how this pandemic, staying at home for an extended amount of time, has really changed your relationship. Kendi, you've shared that you are actually an introvert, and DUNCAN, complete opposite. He's an extrovert, so he's really suffering in this time. But how has the pandemic impacted your relationship up until this point?
Thank you, Victoria, for having us. A lot has really changed. As we had mentioned, my husband is such an extrovert, and his work involves dealing with people and talking to people. So you can imagine the first week when he was told to stay at home, it was so hard for him, like he could not really relate. But I'm introverted. I really enjoy my space. I enjoy working from home. So for me, it was easy. One of the things that changed was I started working from home. I'm grateful to my employer for that. And learning how to draw the line between work and home was quite a challenge at first. But I think as time moved by, I was able to find a balance between work and home. Yeah, it's been quite an interesting experience.
And DUNCAN, I have to bring you in here because, you know, work usually defines and gratifies men. And a lot of that has to do with being in an office space. Now that you're not, you know, what is the psychological impact of not actually being at a desk and being around your coworkers?
Well, I do private business, but I should say at this point that I should not go to jail because I will not survive. Like, this is mind-boggling. It's annoying. At first, it looked like we were having, you know, like honeymoon. You know, the first 2 days you have your wife at home and all that. Then shortly you discover she's around for too long than you expect, and that you were not prepared for it. You remember that quote about till death do us part? You can easily start thinking that it was more of a goal than a promise, like she's too much into your space. And again, I work a lot with people, I work outside, and the thought that I'm confined is not only annoying, but also like it's disturbing. It's a bad place to be at, but we are learning to survive one day at a time.
So have you guys been able to develop some coping mechanisms to deal with some of the stressors? DUNCAN, you mentioned a few, but you know, what are some of the things that you're doing now to deal with it?
Some of the things, Victoria, we started doing, we had to develop a routine, like one, so that we learn how to go about work. Like he said, now that he enjoys crowds, for real, there are times I just allow him, just go take a walk, just feel like it's okay, because there are times you notice he's getting stressed about when he spends time at home. So at times I just allow him to take a walk. Then also having a schedule, like agreeing maybe now that we have a bit of time, what are some of the things that we can do? Can we like learn a skill together? Can we learn maybe how to cook together? What are some of the things that we can do as a family? Or also spend time together, you know, like when was the last time we sat down together and just talk about ourselves? So some of these things have really helped us grow a lot as a family.
And I'm sure it's been, oh, DUNCAN, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I wanted to say, remember my wife is heavily introverted. So even when she's saying she's coming up with a schedule, it's annoying. You understand? Like, my wife knows what we'll be eating for Christmas, you know? So that sort of shift. But as she mentioned, coming to a place where you start appreciating, spending time and asking questions. Like, I just realized that her favorite color is actually not lavender, it's red. I didn't know that, you know? So we're doing a bit of games at night, game night, stuff like that, just to help us bond. But as I said, it's still a challenge, and I think we are learning.
Yeah.
But being different, our differences are magnified because our space has been sort of constricted in a way.
Right. Duncan, you mentioned that this is such a huge learning experience. So beyond learning your wife's favorite color, what more are you learning about yourself and also each other in this time? I guess that's the gift in all of this.
Well, as mentioned, I'm an outgoing person. I love people. I love crowds. And being alone and finding time also to be alone helps you discover certain areas of your life that you hadn't paid attention to. It's like growing you out of preference. One of the things is I have had a lot of books that I've not read in a long time. Like I keep buying them on my way and I don't read. Spending time that I can actually study, concentrate, and read is a learning point. But having said that, I also realized that I can be of help. Instead of mourning and just feeling bad and frustrated, I can reach out to people who perhaps are losing their heads or their minds. And we did this I think we started last week, where we just reached out on Facebook Live, guys and saying, hey, fellow extroverts, how is it happening for you? How is life, taking you? And we realized there are people who actually also need support, or they actually need someone who can tell them, it's okay, what you're going through, we are in this together, let's keep soldiering, let's keep going. Yeah, apart from that, I realized if you love sleeping like I do sometimes, when you have time to sleep, you can't even sleep. Like you say, let me sleep for 2 hours, then you wake up 2 minutes later thinking it's 2 hours later, and things like that. So yeah, we're still learning, as I said.
And before I bring in Dr. Frank NJENGA, I want to hear this from you guys. Is there anything that concerns you about this time? We've heard that the night curfew has been extended for another 21 days. What is a reason for concern or cause for concern for you in this time, in this period?
Maybe, Victoria, before Linda weighs in to give her sentiments, the kind of work I do, peak season starts in April. I do training, I do corporate emceeing and stuff like that. So a lot of my work sort of starts in April. So January, February, things are cool, they're down. And then also when I was just starting to make some money, things were shut down. And I think being in a space where your revenue stream has been interfered with, and I need to also thank my wife that at times it's not easy when you are, bringing all bread and all that, and now you have sort of to negotiate, rethink through what you need. Like one of the things maybe I should say is we learned that maybe some meals we buy on our way home are just unnecessary. We've eaten a lot of pizza once in a while, but then we are asking ourselves, is it really necessary? And being in that space is what to say, it's challenging, so to say. So our revenues, our financial sort of goals have to be revised. We have to think through what we're going to eat, how we plan our meals so that we can survive. And hearing that the president has extended this, we keep asking ourselves, till when? But it's for the good of the country on one hand, but on the other hand, we are like, how are things going to pan out for us?
Right. And Kendi, what are concerns for you?
I think it's learning how to embrace the new normal. Like currently you can't go, even if you go shopping, you really have to be so careful, even as a family. You can't just wake up and go to the supermarket like before. You can't just wake up and go to town like before. But I think as my husband had mentioned, it's for our good, but we are learning how to embrace the new norm. Things have changed, things have become different. We can't wake up and go visit our family members. We can't just meet our friends. All that is changing, but we are hoping that things will be better.
Absolutely. That's everyone's hope at this point. I'd like to bring Dr. Frank NJENGA on board here. Dr. Frank, I just want to read a tweet really quickly before I bring you in. This is Bing Charlie on Twitter saying, COVID-19 has redefined home-work life. There's greater interaction and relationship time in the family. Nowhere to hide for dysfunctional families. Children under strict surveillance. They're just mentioning just some of the changes as a result of this pandemic, Dr. NJENGA. But what does this time really mean in terms of relationship and family dynamics?
Sadly, it means that those people who have been doing well, like Andy and her family, the likelihood is that they will emerge from this tragedy knowing each other better, loving each other more, and a better family unit and function. Sadly, for those who have had issues and continue to have issues, chances are that those problems will be magnified and that they are likely to get worse, unless, of course, they take cues from those who are doing well. In summary, therefore, those who are doing well will do well. Those who are having challenges may have to redefine the issues in and around their lives.
Right. And what about the families with children? Kendi and Duncan have not reached that point yet. But for the families that do have children and trying to make sense of this time and period, telling your kids you can't go outside and play as normally, you know, you haven't been in school for over a month now, how do they begin to communicate this crisis
it really
to the kids?
It really depends on the age of the children. And I think the skill that all families will have to develop is in what is called age-appropriate communication. If, for example, we have a 3- and a 4-year-old, the language and how you communicate the presence of a virus that is invisible, but that is threatening mom and dad and grandparents even more, will necessarily be completely different from the language that you communicate with an 11 or 12-year-old. So I think the message is the same, but the way that it's communicated necessarily has to be different. Parents who appear frightened, anxious, and will always communicate their fear and anxiety to their children. And I think cool, calm, and deliberate communication with children is key as to how the children respond.
Okay, another one here from Kelvin Gashima saying, my problem is in the first 1 week was good for us two, me and my wife. We would sleep late, have chats, watch movies. This has suddenly changed. She leaves me at the table room alone and we talk less. Daktari, what wrong might I have done?
No, you've done nothing wrong. I suspect you're just a normal person. I think if you did a survey and looked at 100 families, 90% of them will have complaints like that. The truth is that we are all having to negotiate and renegotiate territory. Those people who have historically stayed late watching football and passing through the club and have been comfortable being with the boys, the ladies who have been at home preparing meals, taking the children to bed and that sort of thing, have been comfortable in their space. We've been forced into a space that neither the boys nor the girls have experience in. And if it's just the first week, good, it was nice and comfortable. We have now entered the week of negotiations. If you have a good relationship with one another, a time will come when you will negotiate the relationship and good times will come. If your relationship is fundamentally flawed, pole sana.
Duncan and Kendi, before I let you go, I just have to ask you this because you've been sharing your experience online on Facebook, and I'm curious, what kind of reaction have you been getting from, you know, other couples? Are they going through the same thing or even worse?
Thank you, Victoria. We've received a lot of feedback. Most people are going through what you're going through, especially considering that people are quite different. Through your videos, able to learn a few things here and there, and at least we look forward to making our relationship better. We've received a lot of feedback from guys. Yeah, people are going through the same thing.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. Maybe just to add to that, apart from us being different from a personality standpoint, we are in a cross-cultural marriage, so to say. Our cultures are East and West. And so part of the expression we've been doing on our videos is just to tell guys that it's normal. It's okay not to like Mokimo. Like it's okay, it's normal. And I keep telling people I banned Mokimo from my house. I know guys will kill me, but it's because it's from our cultural standpoint, we don't appreciate it. I keep poking holes into how my wife's people, so to say, eat meat the wrong way. Like they eat meat as the last piece of the meal. And so just getting those differences and saying, hey, you guys, you can renegotiate, walk through these, talk through issues, get to Howard, die to yourself, get to Howard and understand what's going on behind the scenes. You know, I give an example today as one day my wife was angry at me because I didn't notice that she was angry in the first place. And I'm like, it's normal. Then reaching a place, renegotiating those territories, as Dr. mentioned, is important. But I'm also mentioning the fact that let's talk, let's have conversation, let's engage. Let us not fear to speak the truth in terms of how are you feeling, how are my actions making you feel, and stuff like that. So that is helpful. And the feedback has been immense, phenomenal. We feel like we've added some fuel to the coping mechanism as people stay at home.
Great. Kendi and Duncan, thank you so much. And you're right, communication is everything at this time. And keep sharing as well. You're helping people that you have no idea through that process. On that note, let's take a short break here on Citizen Weekend. We'll be back with Dr. Frank NJENGA. He'll be taking all of your questions on how to cope in this time. Now that you're with family, what do you do? We'll be right back.